say? Okay, you'll tell me when to go. I can't see you. Ahmad, I can't see you there. Mine. And what else? Sorry? Okay, Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Just before I start, if we could please put all our phones to silent. I'm the first to do that after the interview last week. Welcome to our honorable guest, Mr. Herman Mashaba, leaders of various civic and business organizations, the media, community members, and online guests, as well as Radio Islam listeners who are being covered live today. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I would like to welcome you one and all this evening to this evening's function. I wish to thank you for responding so magnanimously to our invitation and spending the evening with us tonight. Your esteemed presence here tonight makes us feel truly honorable, especially since you have taken time, valuable time away to be with us tonight to discuss this initiative of trying to find a way to contribute to positive change in this country by exercising our democratic right to become active citizens and restore hope to this country, which is direly needed at this juncture. I'm going to start by presenting a few facts and share some of my ideas to get the ball rolling. Tonight we have a double objective. Firstly, we need to find a voice in the form of active citizenry, which I've been promoting going forward. And secondly, we need to hear from Mr. Herman Mashaba on his policies and giving us a way forward. I must say that it's been quite interesting to see how so many people have congratulated me on this initiative, but that there's just too much negativity in this country. And I'm hoping that today I'll be able to try and convince you that we can find some light at the tunnel, and I'm sure Mr. Herman Mashaba will do the same. Thereafter, we will engage in a Q&A discussion where we are encouraging audience participation. We want you to feel free, we want you to feel open to discuss your questions, to share your ideas. I know many of my friends and colleagues, I mean, we speak about having solutions to the country. And I think today you have a person here that's been willing and brave enough to stand up and try to say that he can solve the problem. So if you have any doubts, I mean, I've just chatted with Herman and asked him, you know, how should we direct questions? And he's saying, you know what, guys, fire away, he's ready, and he'd like to answer you. So I want you I want to give voice to the voiceless, because many times we don't have an opportunity to speak. So I want you to feel free. What I was saying is you speak without fear, favor, or prejudice. Speak the truth. Okay, so I'm gonna move over to the PowerPoint there. South Africa, the dream deferred, waking up to the nightmare 29 years on. think I'm just going to move forward here. So basically I've prepared some slides to show you where we are at the moment. As much as I don't want to dwell on it, I just have to highlight some of the issues. We have a downgrade, the grey listing. We have rampant crime. We have poor service delivery. We have poor education. There's mass unemployment in this country. We complain about healthcare, unaffordable healthcare, and the continuous load shedding that seems to plague us. We don't know when the end will be. The water outages have now started. I believe next week there's some more on the way. And our entire train network system has collapsed. We've seen in the news the Transnet debacle recently and the directors that have been fired, which we hope that they can install some new people in there. The traffic lights used to not work. We used to complain before, but now they're disappearing altogether. There's no more lights left. I mean, this is crazy. You know, when the new government came in, we complained that the old government, the apartheid government, left us with a very high debt to GDP ratio. And I was quite shocked to see that what we thought was a bad stat, it was 44% to GDP. We're now at 72% and we're climbing. So if you just want to try and gather where we are from where we were after '94. The post office has virtually collapsed. And the road infrastructure, we know that all the R routes, you know, they all filled with potholes from here to Harry Smith to King Williamstown, Queenstown, Toyando. I've been traveling all these areas and I was shocked to see that if there isn't a toll road, you're not going to get a decent, you know, you're going to find plenty potholes. Furthermore, the tax base in this country is very narrow. I don't know how many people are aware, but this population of this country is about 60 million people, 56 million, and only 5.5 million people are paying tax, which shows you that, I mean, it's not sustainable. The current account deficit is increasing, which means that we import more than we export. So we're getting poorer. Our currency gets weaker. These are all the ramifications of these things. So the depreciated currency, I mean, some do not feel it, but it immediately increases. It has an inflationary cost. And the worst effect of that is for the lower segment of the lower class, lower income population, because theirs is not a 6% that you see on the stats. That's 20%. I mean, in terms of food and transport. And if you look at many of us here that are business people, it's hard to give people a 20% increase annually. So they're the ones that are suffering the most out of these factors. Post-94, the country has deindustrialized. Through different policies, many factories have closed down. Pre-94, the country manufacturing sector contributed about 27% to the GDP. At the moment, it's only 12%. And as we know, industrialization, which I'm going to talk further about, is the key to creating employment in this country. There's not enough rules, but I suppose with the uncertainty in the country, many people want to externalize their money. Everybody wants to put their money in dollars because they can't trust the current currency, and that, at the end of the day, makes the country poorer. So people are not investing in the country. I know it's a chain reaction. The problem is I can't say to you, invest in this country when the currency is going down, when everything else is negative. I mean, you have to look at yourself. But for a country to be successful, we need all of these factors to start working together. And the confidence is important. The diagram there is quite interesting because it says Africa becomes a Chinese takeaway. Because China has come in here and kind of neo-colonization of taking all our mineral resources and taking it to their country and producing it and then selling us back the same things, you know, in the finished product. So there's a natural resource plunder. We externalizing, okay, so I don't need to go through the whole 700 SOEs, but each one of them, there's serious gross management of these SOEs. And as you can see, the amount of money we've spent to try and bail out these entities is just astronomical. Even though some may say that SAA turns a profit now, but the amount of money we've spent into it is just, it's just uncountable. So the list goes on and on and on, and I'm not going to dwell further. That's the end of the negative for the evening. So I'm trying to give you guys all a broad perspective of where we are. I've done a lot of research myself in my spare time because it concerns me in terms of where the country is going. I have a business, I had a very successful business, but at the end of the day, it's not sustainable. I can't continue to invest and be, be profitable as well as accept these things that are happening, this type of inequality in the country. So if I just give you guys some stats here, which you don't see and read about every day in the papers. You've got this 2019 elections. We have 35 million people that are eligible to vote in the country. Only 48% turned out for the last election, and most of the people, 52% of this country, did not vote. They stayed at home. So if you look at the ANC who have won, they got 10 million votes out of 36.7 million, which is only 27%, so which is not a majority. The next slide is even more frightening because that was now 2 years later, you had the 2021 local government elections. Only 35% of the people came out to vote. So if you look at the ANC got the majority there, only 5 million. Out of the previous one was 10 million. Now only 5 million out of the 40 million now, larger population, which is only 13%, came out and voted. 69.5% of the people decided to stay at home. Now if you take the total number of voters, there were 12 million voters. Out of 12 million, there's eligible 40 million people in this country. So that was the turnout. So I started to look at this and say, what, is it voter apathy? Is it people staying away from not voting? But then I went and I dug deeper and I found that, this total population is 60 million. We said there are eligible voters of 40 million. But can you believe that up to now, there's about 14 million voters that have not even registered. Forget turning up to the election. There's only, 14 million people that just didn't register. So the other interesting stat here is that from the age of 18 to 39, now I have 2 daughters that are in that category, born from 1983 to about 2005, which is the millennial generation, and you had the Gen Z generation. Now these 2 groups of generations, it's difficult to understand them. They think differently. They were born after apartheid. They don't know what apartheid was. So it's hard for me even to communicate with them. And that's why we need to encourage them to come into the system. You see, our whole political system is very driven by elderly people. People that went through the apartheid and that. But the life has changed. The whole world is changed from then. So we need more youngsters. I was encouraging one of the other guys to start a youth party. Because the state is that between the age of 18 to 39, can you believe there are 20 million voters? If they all stood together, they could vote everyone out. So 20 million out of 40 million youth stand together and vote for whichever party, Herman. They can take the election tomorrow. So that's just what I wanted to bring to your attention. So I want you to take a minute to really understand the slogan. The world suffers a lot, not because of the violence of bad people, but because of the silence of good people. Good people like yourselves that have come here and are interested to come in and change. That was by Napoleon. So coming back to the current reality, you know, Time magazine rated us the world's most unequal country. We currently have probably also the highest unemployment in the world. So the real pandemic in South Africa is the unemployment, poverty, and inequality. You see them all three words being used always together. So that's what we're facing at the moment. But there is a solution. How can we solve this? Okay, so how can we solve this? The only way to solve our problems is firstly through economic growth. We have multiple ways of how we need to solve the country's problems. There's plenty of things going wrong, but the economic growth is the first factor. So my favorite saying here is from Albert Einstein. I use a lot of people's sayings, so you know you don't misquote me, but these intelligent people have a lot of wisdom. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but we seem to keep on repeating the same problems, expecting different results. It's not going to change, it's just getting worse. I mean, if you look at many of the failed policies that have been implemented, I mean, it's not working, but we still don't change them. We talk of changing them, but we don't change them. So, I don't want to, you know, get into too much detail about everything, but I believe that this is the answer to our problems. We need structural reform in this country. We only need 5 things to be done, and then this country will start to see a big change in its trajectory. The first one is the transformation of ownership in big business, mining and associated industries. You know, there's too few people that control the whole economy. There's no doubt we need the transformation. Not transformation in the sense like the mining charter now where they say once empowered, always empowered, where one individual BE can own up to 26% of a mine. And then suddenly if they buy them out, then it's still empowered. This is the mining charter which they're not finalizing. So there are many monopoly industries in this country that are being protected. So we need to have transformation there. So the biggest thing is beneficiation of raw materials. We've got all the raw materials, we've got all the mineral resources in this country. So why are we sending it all out to China? I don't understand. We should be producing it. We're going to create exponential jobs. When you talk of creating 5 million and 6 million jobs, it's not a fantasy. You hear politicians talking about it, but they don't have the way to do it. It's easy to speak, but here's a very easy way to do it. I mean, I was an importer, I became a manufacturer, and I created automatically about 400-500 jobs overnight. It's cheaper to produce in South Africa than to import. The biggest problem is that those raw material industries are overpricing their product, their raw materials, so it makes us uncompetitive. But we should be issuing a tax to people to export, you know, the raw materials, and we should encourage people, then we're going to solve the problem. The local ownership of resources, we need to have equity, you know, I mean, there's too few people earning too much of the profit. The employees that are working, they also need to have a share. We need to find an employee equity scheme. So government needs to make some money, employees need to have a performance, you know, I'm talking of net profit here, and then the employer obviously is taking the risk, is entitled to the bulk of the profits, but it has to be shared in some kind of equal way, you know. The other two is not even a discussion point. We need to recover the money from corruption and losses. Too much money has left the country, and so if we can get them to bring that in, you know, and encourage the whistleblowers, you know, so the restructuring of SOEs to get money back because we're throwing all our good money after bad money. And then the public sector is obviously too big, one of the biggest in the world. If you take America and us, you've seen the comparison. It's a massive difference. The perception is it pays to do crime in this country. That's become a slogan because everyone wants to take a chance. There is no punishment for crime. So I rather take my chances, whether I'm at the lower levels or at the top level. Everything is about a quick buck. Whereas if you look at countries like China, I mean, hard work leads to success. So we need to do that. So just elaborating on that whole thing is that I feel that through this process which we've discussed now, we'll be able to transform this country overnight by reindustrialization. We've spoken about the resources. The weak currency makes us more competitive. Abundant labor, there's plenty labor here. The only problem with the labor is that it's aging. Those old factories, those old skills, they're dying. They used to have those apprenticeships and that. Now there's nobody teaching them. So we need to transfer the skills from those elderly people and to the younger generation. And that's getting, the time is reaching. When I was having my factory, I was employing people that are 60, 70-year-old people, hoping that they can transfer their skills to the younger generation. No, nobody from other countries are coming here in a hurry. So we're going to lose their skills. And then the government, I mean, you can't criticize government for everything. I mean, they've got this black industrialist program where they've empowered many people. So they've got the money. It's just that sometimes it gets given to the wrong people. But if your intentions are clear and you want to do things, now is the best time to do that. So we spoke about, I just gave my idea that, you give the employees, in terms of net profit, you give them a stake in the pie because then they can feel that they're part of your business. So if you give them 25%, government normally has its taxes and that, you reduce it to 15%, and then the employer still gets the bulk of the profits because they've taken the risks. So we want to replicate the Chinese experience. We don't want the Chinese to come here and take all our stuff away. We need to see what happened with them. They created industry. They started manufacturing. And they started having export drivers. Like they gave them incentives to export. And that's how the country did. So I'm going to say this thing quite loud. In 25 years, China has done what took the whole of Europe, the continent, 200 years to do. I mean, that's a massive, success in doing that. And how did they do it? They did it because they saw other countries. They went to see Japan, they saw Malaysia, they saw America. They saw successful models, and they just copied it. The Chinese are best at copying. They did that. They copy-paste, and in 25 years, they sorted it out. We, in the same period of 29 years, what can we say? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. The success of a country is not a secret, especially not in our country, because we got all the resources, we got the climate, we've got everything here. We even have the geographical position. So we talked about export drivers in the form of export incentives, tax rebates, where you reduce your income tax rate, your wage rebates. There's so many ways to kill the cat here. Youth rebate, to bring the youth in. The raw material suppliers get preferential pricing if you export. If you make locally, it's a bit higher. If you want to export, you have to be competitive. And then maybe subsidize the shipping rate so that it becomes more cost effective. That's what China did. I don't know how many of you are aware of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. That's going to become like the European Union. And it's very much at the level of where it's going to be implemented. In some cases, it has been implemented, which will make it possible for us to export throughout Africa without paying any duties. And they can send to our country, we can send to them, so there's no more duties. And then if we have a preference of some raw material, we can send it to the other country so it can be beneficiated there. Now, East Africa, they're eating South Africa's lunch at the moment. East Africa is growing at a phenomenal pace. The opportunities that were about to be given to South Africa, these foreign manufacturers and investors are going there. Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, they're experiencing significant growth. I was at a meeting last week. There was a guy there that wanted to build a lithium-ion battery plant. And you know what he said? In the SADC region, it has all the minerals that are required to build that battery. It's the only place in the world where it has all those things. So we've got it all here, but the batteries are being made in China. How's that? So we're fortunate in this country, and I think some people haven't realized the benefit of AGOA, Africa Growth Opportunities Act, and the European Market EU Agreement, which virtually says that we can export into these two places, the biggest markets in the world, the European Union and America, for 0% duty. You know that there's been these trade wars between China and America, the East and the West, they're fighting. We've got it here, 0%. I mean, come on. Even if we are a little bit more expensive, we can get our product into America. So if you just look at the map, China having to send the goods to America, it arrives in the West Coast. The East Coast is the hub of activity. So after paying all of that costs, taking it across from West to East in that big country, and paying all the duties, surely, without doubt, we can be more competitive. So, we have to come back to the political situation. This is the answer we have, is industrialization for quick turnaround. We can see overnight benefit. The problem is we need leadership. We need the government to be with us. So I've written many papers, I've written many proposals to government, some of which you've seen now here today. I've shared it with you. I've recently started saying, you know what, let's try and have maybe a reset. So I proposed something which was published, but this was in 2021 in the Daily Maverick that I wrote this article, but I then sent it recently to government as well to say, let's maybe have a CODESA 3. Let's maybe establish an interim government of national unity to effect electoral and structural reform. Because there's many problems, you know, the president has too many powers, the Chapter 9 institutions are not independent enough. We have many issues that maybe we can all sit together around the table, and who better than the current president, you know, to effect that, as he did in 91, 92. Because if you look back, we have short memories. We were on the verge of a serious revolution in this country until they came up with this and said, let's talk to everybody. And that's how we gained our independence, one of the reasons. So I make reference here towards the end here, sorry it's going a bit longer, is the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter was signed in the 26th of June 1955. I mean, at a time when there was serious repression. And let me tell you that this is an amazing document. I mean, all other documents, the constitution that we have today comes from this document. These were illiterate people, some of them. Imagine coming up with this. The people shall govern. All national groups shall have equal rights. The people shall share in the country's wealth. The land shall be shared among those who work it. All shall be equal before the law. All shall enjoy equal human rights. There shall be work and security. The doors of learning and culture shall be open. There shall be houses, security, and comfort. There shall be peace and friendship. Let people who love their people and their country now say, as we say here, these freedoms we will fight for side by side throughout our lives until we have won our liberty. It's an amazing document. And think how much we've achieved in this document. It comes on the front page of many parties. And are we loving it? We're not loving this. The people who drew up this are amongst our community. It was the Kachalias, it was the Dadus, it was all those freedom, the Katradas. They're the ones that came in here and they were part of it. They didn't say we are a minority group and we can't do anything. The Cape Colored Congress were involved. 3,000 people went there and determined the lives, the way forward, and set the platform for the rest of South Africa. And this is the 17 global goals for sustainable development. If we follow what I said earlier, I believe strongly that we can get to no poverty. zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, and all that you see here in the 17 global goals. So the one thing that I want to add into this slide, and we've spoken about everything else, the act of citizenry. There on top, that's a key thing. We've relied on business, we've relied on government and big business to say, listen, take us out of this mess. But I'm sorry, guys, there's no Messiah, there's no Savior. It's you guys that have to stand up now, and we have to stand together. We've said it in the interview the other day that, the 40 years of the UDF, 500 organizations came together under the banner UDF unites, apartheid divides. That single-handedly contributed to the demise of the apartheid system. 3 or 4 students went to Fees Must Fall, and the next minute we changed the whole, gave it free education. So each one of you count here. Don't think that you're a minority group and that whatever you say doesn't count. It does count. In the end of the day, we're hoping to get a broader tax base. Forex reserve replaces debt, equality and human dignity, which at this point in time, we as many that are watching today are Muslims here. This is compulsory upon our religion. We're in the birth of the Prophet's month. He came into this world of Jahiliyyah in the Arab world, and he transformed it in 23 years. We have the guidance, we have the book, we have the constitution, and it is imperative that we attain equality and human dignity. Furthermore, the disposable income will increase. Everyone will be able to have a house. Education will come. Health, security, and improved infrastructure. These things will come because we're going to grow the economy. At the moment, we got no growth, so we're borrowing. We need to create some value in society. So in the end, I'd like to conclude and say that Franklin Roosevelt, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. And with that, I'm concluding. Okay, so now it's time for the next part of our presentation, which is by Mr. Herman Mashaba. I know I've taken a lot of time here. I didn't know when to stop. Herman Mashaba probably needs no introduction to most people. But I need to remind you that Herman is a businessman who started the cosmetics company Black Like Me in the early days of apartheid, when it was at its peak, and became very successful despite the odds stacked against him. In recent times, he decided to focus on politics. I'm sure he's going to tell you more about the reason why he's done that. And his biggest test came when he became the mayor of the DA in Johannesburg, where he exacted many reforms in the city and tried to improve many things that was lacking. I know when I went to the rates department, I seen a big difference when the DA came in. So much so that when he started his new party, Action SA, he was already well known in the political sphere and managed to, within a year of establishing during COVID, such a great following and votes for the Johannesburg area, which is more than many of the parties that have been established for even 10 years. So with that, I would like you to please join me in welcoming Mr. Herman Mashaba to the podium.
Thank you, Rasheed, and good evening, everyone. What an inspiration for me, because sometimes I think I'm mad. I sometimes actually doubt myself as to why I've taken a decision to do this brutal work. Because the work that I do, people find it really very funny when I tell them I hate this job. And I hate it with a passion. But it's the job that I've got to do. And why do I have to do this? Tell me, if I don't do this job, then who? Because you can imagine, if all of us 60 million South Africans saying, this job is not for me. Because one thing that we must accept, whether we like it or not, there'll be government. Whether you're interested or not interested, there will be government in a country or society in which you live. And now, obviously, the less interest you have, then you end up being governed by criminals. Or you end up being taken over by a military juncture. Now, that's the decision that we've got to really take as South Africans. Because we're at the stage where our country, come 2024, it's going to really be the final moment for our country. And please, don't really take me to be a prophet. I'm not very far from being one. But I just really use common sense. I'm 64 years old, so I'm not a young man. I've lived more than half of my life under the apartheid evil system. And I've lived to witness this country the last 29 years being taken down, being destroyed. Just the other day, just over a week ago, I drove to the Hoedspruit area in Limpopo. I came back, 2 of my car rims damaged. They had to take them in. Roads that in the 80s, I used to do plus minus 10,000 kilometers a month. Used to travel the length and breadth of this country, doing plus minus 10,000 kilometers in world-class roads, be in the small cities, be on the whatever, on the national roads. Today, most of our roads, if you don't really have a 4x4, you're not going to be traveling on them. So someone has got to really do this job. Can I go into the slide? I just really quickly take you through my quick presentation so that we give you an opportunity to engage Rasheed and I. And Rasheed, I'm honestly inspired by your determination and your love for this country, because I've gotten a sense that you are doing this because of your love for the country, your children, your grandchildren. It's not about you. So thank you so much. And I think also really thank you so much as a community to really come and listen to me. On a Monday evening like this, you're supposed to be with your families, but you realize the importance of actually taking the responsibility for your children and your families. Action SA, for me, I got into politics, really, as I said, out of the love of my country. Just some of the things that Rasheed has touched on. In 2019, just 36 million people were eligible to vote. 17 million people voted, 18.3 million did not vote. Yes, ANC voted by 10 million. So as you can imagine from right now, what is really happening. When I left business, I threw my head in the ring with the DA because I voted for the ANC twice in my life, in 1994 and 1999. But then I had to look for options, only to discover that I'm voting for the wrong party. And I started voting for the DA. And now I was approached in 2015, late 2015, to be the mayoral candidate for the city of Johannesburg, and that's when I took personal responsibility. 2016 January campaign, got 38% of the residents of Johannesburg. A DA formed a multi-party government, becoming the mayor of the city of Johannesburg on the 22nd of August 2016. Unfortunately, I only governed for 3 years. In the process, the DA and I made a terrible mistake. I thought the DA and I shared the same values, only to discover while inside the DA that no, the DA and I, we misread each other. I'm a born, brought up capitalist, but unfortunately, I have a social conscience. That's really what got me into politics. I cannot afford, and I'm not prepared to live side by side with poverty. Poverty in a country as rich as South Africa. So unfortunately, DA thought I'm a cheeky black because I could not obviously take instructions from them where I must provide services. I was focusing my energies on providing services to the marginalized, the forgotten people. I used to call them the forgotten South Africans. And for that reason, DA came out with a propaganda and a campaign to call me an EFF mayor. And I was fortunate enough, came across, someone brought to my attention secret meetings between the DA and the ANC to remove me as the mayor. DA, obviously, I was a cheeky black. I'm sure some of you old enough, you'll know what a cheeky black is. A cheeky black is someone like me who doesn't listen to the boss. And obviously from the ANC, they had a problem with me because I was pursuing criminal corruption charges against some of their senior members. So the two got together. While they were still planning to have this motion of no confidence, I got to know about it, and being the mayor for me was the last job in the world I want, and I'm not the person to be pushed. So I decided, unfortunately, had to drop the residents of the city of Johannesburg. And at the time when I made this announcement, both DA and NC denied my statement. But unfortunately enough, one thing that I'm sure all of you are aware, when you lie, you cannot really maintain a lie. Helen Zille has now officially confirmed the secret meetings with the ANC. But I did not at the time realize I had made such an impact, not only on residents of the city of Johannesburg, but throughout the country, because all of a sudden, people said to me, Mashaba, please start your own political party. I said, oh my God, goodness, what have I done in this world to get this punishment? I said, and I felt someone in my family, in fact, I think so. If I have to go back in my family tree, someone must have messed up big time. And God has decided I'm the one who must pay the price. What else? I mean, why can someone be so punished? Because I'm doing this punishing job. And I listened to people, started a project called the People's Dialogue to engage South Africans to see if these people who are asking me to start a political party, are they genuine people? I wanted a scientific basis. And secondly, I wanted to make sure that these people and I share the same values. 3 months later, 2.4 million South Africans gave me the mandate to start a political party. By that time, my family was very nervous. I said to them, look, I'm going to run this People's Dialogue program for this scientific program for 3 months. If I get less than 500,000, I won't proceed. Unfortunately for me, 2.4 million, 5 times the number of South Africans said I must start a political party, which I launched on the 29th of August, 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And obviously, I then needed to establish the core values to make sure that I don't make the same mistake. The third mistake, because I made the mistake, I felt betrayed by the ANC, but I take responsibility because it means I did not do my homework who the ANC was. I felt betrayed by the DA, but this time around, I'm not going to be betrayed again by anyone. So before I start a political party, let me make sure that these people who are asking me to start a political party, do we share the same values? Values of non-racial society. Value of economic prosperity, that we pursue a free market economy, quality education, social justice, Ethical leadership. For me, ethical leadership is not negotiable. All my colleagues in South Africa know, and I also want you to know, I'm not in this job to make friends with anyone. I don't need friendship in the job that I do. But I value friendship very strongly. For me, friendship is important. But then I don't want the kind of a friendship that people establish at some very famous shebeen in Saxon World in Johannesburg. You've heard of that place that's where people create friendship. I don't want that kind of friendship. I want a friendship really based on ethical values. And also in terms of the rule of law. There's just no way you can ever build a country where there's no rule of law. Rule of law is the foundation of any civilized, prosperous nation. And it is my dream that one day South Africans can get an opportunity to vote for political parties of their choices. Just in a year's time, because the party, as I said to you, launched on the 29th of August 2020 in the middle of COVID, we had to immediately prepare for the upcoming local government elections of 2021. Contested 6 municipalities. IEC refused to put our name on the ballot paper. We contested as a logo. All the analysts and professors said that Stokvel of Mashaba, the best case scenario that they gave me was that if I get 3 councillors in Johannesburg, I would have done well. They said Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and everywhere else, I can forget. There's just no way. According to their clever computers and whatever work that they do in the analysis. We contested 6 municipalities. We gained 550 votes. We emerged as the 6th biggest political party in this country, nationally. Out of 278, South Africa has got 278 municipalities. So Action SA today, as I speak to you, we're a new party, 3 years old, but we're not a small party. We are the 6th biggest political party. In the city of Johannesburg, where they said I will get 3 councillors, can anyone guess how many councillors Action SA has got in Johannesburg? You guess I'll give you a free copy of the book, the first one. No, 15. Yeah. So no one can get. Unfortunately, my book is safe. Action SA has got 44 councillors in the city of Johannesburg. 44. We are the 3rd biggest political party in the city of Johannesburg, the biggest metro in this country. We've got 44 councillors. Let me tell you something. In 2016, when I was the mayor, ANC had 124 councillors. You know where they are right now when people tell you people like ANC? ANC right now, as I'm talking to you in the city of Johannesburg, from 124, we brought them down to 90. From 124. The DA, when I was their mayor, we were 104 of us. You know how many councillors they've got? 71. Action SA from nowhere came, we've got 44. We are the 3rd biggest political party in the city of Johannesburg. Followed by the EFF, 10-year-old EFF, which can fill up FNB Stadium. You know how many councillors they've got in the city of Johannesburg? Where Action SA has got to 44, EFF has got 29. Here in the city of Tshwane, where they said we'll get nothing, we've got 19 councillors. We've got 15 councillors in Ekurhuleni. And everywhere where we contested, the 3 other municipalities in KZN, where ANC had majority. All 6 municipalities where we contested, and we brought ANC under 50%. Here in Gauteng, we brought them in the 30s. And now we've already contested by-elections in roughly, I think, about 8 or 9 by-elections where we contested. Everywhere where we contested, not a single place, we are either number 2 or number 1. From nowhere, we smash our opposition in rural Limpopo, in rural Eastern Cape, in rural KZN. We numbered 1 or number 2 or number 3 in by-elections. And when you run a by-election, you only have got 2 months to really prepare yourself. Now, obviously, we are going forward, preparing ourselves for 2024. Because this project is not important, it's more than important. Like all of last year, I focused on building structures throughout the country so that by 2024, we can contest all 9 provinces and for the presidency of the country. It took me 10 months to set up structures throughout the country. As I'm talking to you right now, there's a branch, actually there's a branch opening somewhere in the country. There's a branch opening somewhere in the country. Beginning of this year, at a factory where I started Black Like Me, factory, yeah, somewhere around about this size, 200 square meters. I had what we call the South African dream. I launched what is called the South African dream. Realizing South Africans are not the kind of people that are looking to drive Porsches and run big parties and live in 20 million rand houses. South Africans just really want to really be given equal opportunity. South Africans are not looking for equal outcomes as our government is actually promising them. So I launched this program, which landed with us a few weeks ago. That's where, for the first time, I met Rasheed. They came, I invited him to our policy conference for 3 days, where since the last 3-4 months, we were unpacking our policies, and now all of you have a copy of our policies, so that if you so decide that we're a party that that you want to vote for, our final policies of what we stand for are there in this in this document. I'm just going to quickly just give you the highlight. In terms of energy, we are saying ESCOM will continue, but it has to run on a commercial basis and allow the private sector to compete with them. We are not going to keep on funding ESCOM. We'll put professional people to run ESCOM, but they'll compete with the private sector on a commercial basis. If they cannot run on commercial basis, then let them run and die at a natural death. In terms of economic prosperity, one of the biggest thing that really got me upset with the ANC was the Labor Relations Act. I warned Tito Mboweni when he was the Minister of Labor during Mandela's time to say, Tito, you guys, you're coming in this country, you are going to destroy businesses. These draconian laws, these evil laws that you guys are coming out with, you are going to destroy this country. You can ask Tito Mboweni when he was the first Minister of Labor. So we need labor laws that are going to allow the business people to employ people who want to work. I grew up when I was young in the 70s and so forth. You know, people who did not work were those who did not want to work. That's why the apartheid government had what was called Lofferskap. You know, remember they used to go into the townships and arrest people who did not work. Today, 12 million of our fellow South Africans are unemployed. And now you tell me our labor laws are progressive. Progressive when we are the most unequal society on earth. I don't want to just sit back and watch such things really happen. So we need to amend our labor law so that we can allow the businesses and people who want to work. If I want to work for Rasheed wants to give me 8,000 rands a month. Government has got no business whatsoever The only thing the business government role should really be to make sure that health and safety measures are taken into place. But you cannot really determine how much someone must be paid by government. People who've never worked in their lives, they've never employed anyone. People who cannot even sell a potato at a profit, being the only supplier in the country. They're the ones who must determine policies for us. Look at right now, we must be honestly, a crazy nation on earth. In a democratic environment, we allow our economy to be driven by communists. Minister of Trade and Industry. How many communists did we have for them running trade and industry in this country? And we think we can have an economy that's growing. That's why our economy will be lucky if we're going to even grow. We're talking about 0.1% growth. But at the same time, you're allowing the national population growth to be over 2%, and you think you can really succeed. I mean, we have to really be crazy as human beings to allow something like this. Education, I remember hardly 10 years into the ANC government, in the evening having dinner with my family, I'll say to my wife, you know what? I've got a sense ANC wants to keep black people poor and uneducated. And my wife said, Herman, you are unfair. No human being can ever think like this. Tell me, who can argue with me today about our education? Are you aware our education in terms of outcome is the worst in the world? It's the worst in the world. But if you look at what we spend on education compared to other countries, our spend on education, it's one of the highest in the world, but the outcome is the worst. Public education is literally dysfunctional because we've allowed the SATU to run and COSATU to destroy our education. And I'm not prepared to accept anyone that is because of ignorance or it's corruption. I'm convinced, totally convinced, it's a plan of the ANC and the Communist Party to keep people poor and uneducated. I'm sure you guys know the history of the communists. From 1917, when Lenin and Stalin took over Russia and brought communism into the world, the first thing what they did, kill all the clever people. That's why ANC hates black people. And I'm in this business to create clever people. So it is deliberate. Our education outcomes are not a mistake. It is government policy to keep black people and their minds as slaves. Because when people are slaves and they've got a slave mentality, they are victims. Because you listen to the ANC on everything. All these potholes that damaged my car is apartheid. No, it's apartheid that destroyed my car. These potholes, because the apartheid government didn't make sure that's what the president said last week, that the apartheid government did not produce enough engineers. 29 years later, just last week, the president said all this electricity challenges, water, is because the apartheid government did not produce enough engineers. In the meantime, the pass rate is 30% subject to whatever, and they destroyed maths and science. They took God out of our schools and our communities. That's why when you go into the black communities today, I'm sure some of you're going to find people they're subjected to drugs and alcohol and music and everything else. I don't want to live in a society like this. And I'm not really prepared to say I can't do anything about it, because I can do something. And all of us can do something about it. In terms of climate environment, I think if we're not going to look after our environment, the world is not going to be sustainable. In terms of health care, we need to ensure that we need to build more hospitals, more clinics, because the only way we can succeed as a nation, we have to have a healthy nation. But today, Baragwanath Hospital, is a shadow of his past. Kalafong Hospital, not far from here, used to be a good hospital, training nurses. Today, they've really destroyed it. Pretoria, I don't know what they call it, because every time there's a problem with our government, there's a problem with the building, they change the name, or the streets gets potholes, they change the name. So I don't even know what the name of our hospitals or our street names, because every week it looks like they go to work to go and change names of streets. And I was saying when I was a mayor in the city of Joburg, I said, no name changes. Let's go and build more roads, more hospital clinics, and we can call them anything. But unfortunately, that's not really what this new government is doing. In terms of foreign policy, we are saying we have to make sure that I think we expand our reach with other countries, but obviously operate with countries where we respect human rights, and to make sure that it's a mutual benefit. It can't be a one-way stream where countries benefit out of South Africa and we get the crumbs, as Rasheed said. We need to make sure that all relationships are beneficial to us, South Africa. We need to, I think if I look at diplomatic missions in South Africa is good. You know, we're the second to the United States in terms of diplomatic missions in the world. A country like South Africa with 5 trillion rands debt, country with 46% unemployment. We've got embassies. We're second to United States of America. We've got to cut down these embassies and to make sure that we can put money into our system. In terms of economic justice, we have to abolish this broad-based BEE of the ANC and come out with a system that can benefit the majority, those who were previously disadvantaged. When BEE was introduced, we were told it's broad-based. In fact, when it started as BEE. Every time they added a BEE, making it broader in terms of just cheap talk, the more narrow it became. What we are saying as Action SA, we give us the mandate, we'll immediately abolish this BE. Don't tell me BE, the intention was good, or it's the implementation. How can you have a policy that is not implementable? So if you have a good policy, a policy we must be able to implement it. We are proposing an inclusive economic empowerment of previously disadvantaged. Ordinary men and women, not just the Mashabas to be the only ones getting the benefit of what is called BE. Start an opportunity fund where we can really build schools, proper schools, clinics, fund businesses from these communities, and really work for the development of the poor people, give them an opportunity to advance in life. We want law and order. Rasheed forgot to tell you, I lost an argument at our policy conference because I'm so angry with the level of crime. Are you aware 80 people are being murdered in this country every single day? You have a better chance of being killed in South Africa than anywhere in the world. 80 people are being murdered in this country every single day. Every 30 seconds, a woman is being raped in this country. You know, yesterday, one of my family members, it's in a rehab somewhere in Mpumalanga, when I wanted to have a personal experience. Made me even more angry. More than 400 youth, one of them 14 years of age, from somewhere in the East End, chained because we've opened our borders, allow international drug cartels to come and destroy our nation. And we sit back and say things are normal. I was looking at this man. I attended church with them. Half an hour later, I couldn't take it. I left and got out, and I left to find a way how I can engage with them. But the problem is big, that it's a nationwide problem. So my view, I really felt, no, man, the only way one can sort out this country's problem, we need the death penalty back. But thank you for clapping, but unfortunately I lost the argument with our teams. And I agree with them. If you bring back the death penalty right now, unfortunately you're going to kill poor people. Because our criminal justice system is broken. We don't have proper detectives and policemen and women any longer. Our prosecutors, very corrupt. They don't know what they're doing. They are captured. Now, you can imagine if you put a poor person with no legal representation. So rich people will never be killed. You're going to end up killing poor people. So we said, why I accepted their counter-proposal was that if you get sentenced to life in prison, you must serve life. We must not talk about correctional services. We agreed. We are going to have prisons and we are going to have correctional services. We will obviously put in people who commit small crimes in correctional services, and so that we can reform them. But Thabo Beste, they must go to prison. There's no time and nonsense so that we must reform Thabo Beste. A murderer, a rapist. Thabo Beste must, he's got life sentence, no parole. And he must be subjected to hard labor. When you say no parole for hardened criminals, they must build more prisons so that in correctional services. I can tell you, if I have my way, these murderers and rapists, when they go to prison, they will regret why they've committed a crime in the first place. And also what's important, we take away the rights to vote. I cannot understand a normal society can allow murderers to vote to political parties. What nonsense is this? You can imagine our future must be determined by murderers and rapists. So we are saying as Section SA, these heinous criminals will never have a right to vote. We take the right. They are the ones who took the right, it's not us. But I don't understand our constitution today. We allow prisoners to go and study. You can imagine allowing Thabo Beste to study for what? Because he's not going to get out of prison. As far as Section SA is concerned, why must I educate Thabo Beste? When I have people here in Diepsloot, in Mamelodi, there's an informal settlement here next to Lodium. Those are the people I care about. Instead of educating Thabo Beste, I must take that money to go and and educate those people. Thabo Beste must just go and work every single day of his life. He'll only get a day off on Sunday, and half of it must be in a religious environment. So that's really what our policies are saying. And obviously, you've got the policies there. Rural development is very important. You know, I started my business in Garanko industrial area. I grew up in Amanskral, Babelech industrial area. It used to be one of the biggest industrial areas in the country. Today, that Garanko industrial area, it's gone. Babelech industrial area, COSATU closed factories, one after the other. We need to reopen those factories because those factories, you know, South Africa, we're the only country in the world with over R1 trillion worth of factories. Properties belonging to us, South Africans. They're lying empty. And then we allow China, our raw materials to be exported to China. Let us manufacture here in our country, give those factories to entrepreneurs at long leases, give them massive tax breaks, and employ people who want to work. So that people don't have to come to Johannesburg or come to people of Manskral. Why must they travel long distances when there are massive factories, 20, 30, 40,000 rand square meter factories? Close down. We need to reopen those factories and pay businesses, actually not pay them, come and invest in these properties. Give them, they don't have to, depending how much money you are going to invest, how many people you're going to employ. We'll give you tax breaks for 10, 20 years. You don't have to pay your normal taxes. But what you are going to do, you're going to help us make sure that you give people the dignity of work. We need a professional public service. I cannot understand in the life of me. Just for an example, you take the UK government, 19 ministers, cabinet. We have how many? 74, 76. As Section SA, we are saying our cabinet will have a maximum of 20 cabinet ministers. Executive, maximum of 20, not a single deputy minister. We don't need a deputy minister to do what? To provide jobs for cadres when we don't have money to build infrastructure. So we don't need a single deputy minister. We must do skills audit immediately upon taking over, based on merit, nothing else. All South Africans, based on their merit, people must do the job based on merit. We'll immediately do a skills audit, but over and above the skills audit, we are going to do lifestyle audits. All government employees, from the president up to the lowest, you must subject yourself to lifestyle audit on a regular basis, and the results of your lifestyle audits must be made public. So in that way, that if we're paying you R1 million a year, and you want to go and live 100 million rands lifestyle, if we catch you, you remember what I said about the rule of law? Corruption will carry a minimum of 15 years with no parole. So we'll do lifestyle audits, and we are going to subject ourselves as part of your employment contract, be it political and administrative. You've got to subject yourself to lifestyle audit so that we can deal with the question of corruption in this country. So we're ready for 2024. We hope that South Africans can work with us to really save this country for future generations. As I've indicated to you, we have now got 9 provincial chairpersons. Next week, Wednesday, actually, I'm announcing this to you for the first time, because I spoke to my colleague just before I left home. Next week, Wednesday, I'm having a press conference to announce our first premier candidate in the country. This is obviously breaking news. I'm not telling you which province. I hope by end of this year to announce the premier candidates for all 9 provinces. We launch branches. We want, by the time we go to the elections next year, we must have at least 65% of all the wards having branches. Because having branches, we need to really go house to house, in a village, in every township, in every informal settlement, to make sure that we can get the 25 million people who have chickened out of politics. We need to bring them back. We need to go from house to house, register people to register to vote, so that we can save this country, not for ourselves. All of us here, we are just really the vehicles to set up the foundation, the beneficiaries of the work that I'm doing, and I hope you can join me on this. At least I see I've got a partner, Rasheed. Thank you so much for really realizing the seriousness of this matter. This is a life and death situation. We're not dealing with a small matter of someone stealing your cell phone. Here we're talking about a country collapsing, becoming another failed African state. If we fail to do this in 2024, South Africa is going to be a failed state, and Zimbabwe will look like a Sunday school picnic. And I hope that it is in our hands to ensure that we can save this country from collapse. And I hope you can join me on this terrible, brutal journey, but we do it for future generations. Thank you very much for listening to me. Rasheed, back to you. I don't know how you'd like to run the sessions, whether people must eat and then you do the Q&A or whatever. I'm easy. Thank you so much for really listening to me. Thank you so much for showing interest in our country. I know you're not here because you don't have anything to do or you don't want to be with your family. You are here because you care about our country as much as I do. And you make me realize that I'm normal, I'm sane. Because sometimes when you do this brutal job on your own, you think you're the only person who cares. So I'm glad that I'm not abnormal. So your presence here this evening tells me that, Herman, you're a sane person. Your concerns are genuine. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Herman. I think a big round of applause is deserved for Herman. I just noticed that one stat that he was speaking about, 2.4 million people voted for him. When I told you earlier,
550,000. 2.4 are the ones who gave us the mandate to start it.
to start it. Okay, but it's no underachievement and well done within that short period. A round of applause. Okay, so I know you've been engrossed for long. We promised you here that we're giving you the voice. So far you've only heard me and Herman, and I extended it so you've reciprocated with the timing. We'd like to concurrently, for the live audience here, we've prepared a sumptuous supper for you. So if we could try to simultaneously do the supper quietly in a way, but also have the questions so we don't delay the proceedings. We started a bit late. One of the radio stations have to go off by 9 o'clock, but I thought, I don't know if you agree, but can we do that together? Can we eat and ask the questions? Okay, so what you're saying is Herman answered all your questions. Okay, so I'm going to open the floor.
Rasheed,
Yes?
can we perhaps have one table at a time going?
Okay, so let's start with the back table. You can start there so long, and then we'll do it in an orderly fashion so that we don't lose time. So if we could just have some of the assistants there to help us in sorting out that, Shamila, Zakir, if you guys can just help us there. So guys, the floor is open. It's a relaxed atmosphere. You've seen Herman. I'm dressed more formally than him, so he's ready to answer all your questions. He's waiting, he's eager. And I know that when we were organizing this whole event, there were a lot of questions. So can we start the ball rolling?
Any taker?
Just raise your hand, then we'll take it there.
Any takers? All right, thank you.
Okay, you can identify yourself if you want to. If not, it's up to you.
Hi, I'm Izar. I'm a South African citizen who cares. And my question is, well, to give a little bit of background quick, is every single day I go to work in the CBD, and it's not unknown to anybody how the CBD is. People are afraid to go there. So I'm not willing to wait for any political party specifically to step in or wait for another president. So what can I do today to bring about a change so when I go to work every day, I'm enjoying my environment and people are excited to come to the place where I work and also enjoy that environment with me.
Thanks. Herman, you've got the...
Another question? Another taker? Not. Oh, that's a lovely audience. Okay, I think, what do you say the name is? Izzat. Izzat, what you're asking to do as an individual, it's impossible. And I think, unfortunately, I was born and brought up in that fashion. I don't think I would like to really mislead you to give you a sense that you can rebuild the city of Johannesburg mess on your own as an individual. It's impossible because there are so many dynamics that you've got to deal with. Firstly, law and order. Tell me, how are you going to deal with crime as an individual when you don't really have the support of the police, you don't have the support of the prosecuting authority, you don't have the political support. Already, I mean, you've got a huge challenge. So I think, as human beings, we have to obviously take responsibility and have aims and bigger aims. But I think we've got to find a way to we must have goals that are achievable. What you are asking, unfortunately, is not achievable. This project requires, unfortunately, government. Because you've got so many facets of government that must get involved in the restoration of that city. In terms of dealing with crime, we need to deal with those hijacked buildings. When I was the mayor, I had a project called the Inner City Rejuvenation Project. In 3 years, I managed to expropriate 154 of those buildings, gave them to the private sector to the value of 32 billion rands, creating 14,000, going to create 14,000 housing opportunities, creating 22,000 jobs. Unfortunately, just before the private sector could start building, that's when there was this, I came across the secret meetings between the ANC and the DA to remove me as a mayor. But I could do it at the time without the support of the province. Makura was not prepared to help me. The police were not prepared to deal with the hijackers. We know how some of our senior politicians are involved in hijacking syndicates. That's the reason why there's no political will to prosecute, to criminally charge these people. So the problem is really big for me to can say, do this for you to solve that problem. If you want to solve that problem, to really make sure that you put in a political party that can deal with this matter. You can't deal with the matter on your own, even as an independent, right? Like right now, a lot of politicians are talking about independence. I can tell you, independence in the South African environment, these are people who are just looking for jobs to be MPs. Because tell me, next year if you vote for an independent, you like a guy in Lodium, whatever. You are just giving one person a job. Tell me when he goes to parliament, can he change laws and come out with policies? And this is the same guy that, unfortunately, the pala dollars work. Easy to buy, to use the pala dollars to buy independence. They buy them in local government level. We've got lots of independents, and they're the most corrupt because they're not accountable to anyone. They're accountable to themselves, and you can't remove them. Once you've elected them and you elected someone as an independent, you are stuck with them for 5 years. You can't do anything. They are free agents. And I can tell you the Angola and the Buffalo dollars are going to work, and there's nothing that you can do. So I'd really to advise you as South Africans, please be very, very careful with the independent candidates. We're looking for trouble. For me, as far as I'm concerned, they are not a solution to our country's problems.
Thanks for that answer. I hope it answers your question. We're going to try to get through many questions. So each time an individual asks a question, Herman, I'm suggesting we
Deal with
reply
it
to
with-
it so that we don't have this long list. But the more questions we get through, the better.
So,
Yes.
Thank you. My name is A.K. Sirat. Herman, I come from a scientific background. So myself and my colleague here, and we always discuss the science. You plan to achieve quite a bit, and I'm really impressed with it. Now, have you got any market research whereby you can judge how well Action SA is going to perform in the next election? Because that's very critical. You will obviously have some idea that in certain provinces you might go for a majority, and in some provinces you'll go for a coalition. Do you have any scientific data to say where you think your support is going to go? That's the first question. I'll come to another one later.
AK, to remember what I said to you about the scientific basis that people use in running polls. Remember what scientists and professors, political scientists said about Action SA in 2021 local government elections. I gave you the stats. They said to us, they said to the nation, it is there. I can go into Google, look at the most optimistic analysis by clever scientists. They said that we'll get 3 councillors in the city of Johannesburg. We ended up contesting as a logo with 44 councillors, 19 Pretoria and so forth. We got 550,000 people who voted for a logo. How much will we get in 2021? I'm a person that believes in doing research, but I think research, I've been a businessman for almost 4 decades. And every time, the only time I lost money in business, that's when I allowed my team to use research as a determining factor. I use common sense. Not that I disregard research. Research is there to really guide me. So I don't want you to say that I don't believe in research. That's why we did that study when I wanted to find out whether these people who are asking me to start a political party, I wanted to test whether these are real people. That was a scientific basis I used. But in business and even in politics, I use research to give me guidance, but at the end of the day, common sense actually tells me a lot. And the thing is, if you look at people, entrepreneurs that have changed the world not from science, it's just to see an opportunity or you see a problem and you find a solution to that. How will Action SA perform in the 2024 elections? I think it's still too early, but one thing for sure is that we are all going to emerge as a serious player. Give me a chance. I still have 7 to 8 months to reach the 25 million South Africans who have given up on politics. I need to bring them back into politics, give them hope. That's why today, we as a party, we have 230, by last week, 230 volunteers throughout the country. And I need to ensure that by end of this year, I have at least 300,000 volunteers that I must deploy in every township, in every village, in every informal settlement, in every street, to ensure that they not go and teach people about politics, go and teach them about the power of their vote that is going to change their lives. We are going to emerge as a serious player. But at this point in time, whatever number we're going to give it, it is going to be an academic exercise. It's really still too early. We've still got a lot of work to do. But based on hard evidence, not research, how we performed in 2021, how we have performed in the 8 by-elections, that tells you a lot. Based on that, with my team, 4 weeks ago, we had a 4-day session. The guys doing number crunching based on how we've performed. We're sitting at between 12 and 15%.
Thanks.
We're sitting at about 12 to 15% based on hard evidence. But
sorry, I just want to take other questions. Yeah. Thanks, Herman, for that. I hope that answers your question. There's a gentleman at the back there. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Fire away.
Can I speak? Okay. Good evening to everybody and assalamu alaikum. Being from the religious fraternity or the clergy, I know Herman has mentioned the exclusion of God from our whole country, and we've seen before that the black people were very, very religious, and it's busy dying. I have to first ask about Islam. I had two questions, but I'll ask the one that affects me, is that will the Muslims still be safeguarded because we do not have black or white, we're just Muslims? The religion, will it still be safeguarded in the schools? And the other question is, what is going to be done about the illegal foreigners and Home Affairs being corrected, because Home Affairs is now infiltrated even with illegal foreigners taking over and taking posts. So basically that's the question.
very good question. Can I share something with to you guys, something that is close and dear to my heart? And that's something that I wish I can achieve before God takes me away from this world. I find it totally unacceptable because when I voted for Nelson Mandela on the 27th of April 1994, I thought we were going to create a non-racial South Africa where people are not judged on the basis of their color, gender, or anything like that. I find it is personal to me, more especially when I deal with my fellow South Africans of Indian origin, that we must still call you guys Indians. In South Africa, 29 years into our democracy, I find this for me quite insulting. And I hope that we can work together, that we must all be South Africans. How can people who've been in the country for 170 years still call them Indians? What apartheid government promoted, we are comfortably continuing to promote it because it's racial division. You people are South Africans. You're not Indians. Some of you, I'm sure, you've not been to India. So I believe very strongly, I want to live in a country where all of us can be South Africans. I don't want my son to be called black before being called a South African. I want all of us to be South Africans, and I don't obviously want to really deny you of your origin. You're South Africans of Indian origin. And when it comes to religious beliefs, I think God created us not by mistake for us to have different religious beliefs. But what is important for me is for all of us to believe in God. And I've even, for me, go to an extent of those who don't believe in God, who are roughly 2% in South Africa. I don't care about them, but I don't want them to take God away from me. Because all of us, whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're Hindu, you're any other religion, ultimately, all of us believe in God. Because I cannot really see how we can build a nation, a society, and families if we don't put God ahead of everything in our lives. How your religion must be respected and be protected by the Constitution of the country.
Thank you. That's a great answer. The gentleman here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mohammed Moti. I am Mr. Mashaba, when you spoke earlier of the difficulties that you've encountered when working with other political parties, namely the DA, I'm curious as to the multi-party charter that's been signed by Action SA. How is that going to work when you already have had experiences with other parties, knowing that you may not all be on the same page?
Well, look, you know, South Africa has entered an era of coalition. It's not something that political parties everywhere in the world, political parties, when they go out and campaign, you want outright majority. But unfortunately, ultimately, who decides are the voters. So I think for us as Action SA, this multi-party charter, it's actually insurance for us. We're working as Action SA to go for an outright win. But are we realistic? Can we gain outright majority? I think we have to really be realistic in our approach. Now, what we need to do to look at a better devil, like anywhere else in the world, in democracies where people work in coalition, you look for a better devil to work with. And that's really what we're doing. It's a real insurance in the event we don't get outright majority. Which are the political parties we work with? In fact, what happened remember we had that multi-party convention about 2 months ago, or just under 2 months ago. I remember the first, it was a 2-day session. The first hour of opening address by all political leaders of political parties, and with the 3 from each party. So I spoke on behalf of Action SA. And I made it abundantly clear to all the parties which were there to say, colleagues or fellow South Africans, we are not here to make friends. I'm not here. If you guys are here to make friendship, I just want to make it clear to you that I'm not here to make friends with you. And I don't want you to really also have that impression. We are here because the voters are pushing us into a coalition. For us as Action SA, we are unapologetic. We're going to work towards getting outright majority. So here with you, we just really want to buy insurance in the event we don't really get outright majority. And we are not in this relationship to cover for anyone. I can tell you I'm one person. If you go into a relationship with me, expect that Herman Mashaba is going to cover for you. I'm not going to cover. I will cover for you when you do the right things. But if you don't do the right thing, I'm not going to cover for you, and I don't want you to cover for me. I don't, honestly, for us as Action SA, we don't want anyone to cover for us. If we mess up, please, hold us at the same standard as what we hold you. That's why we see what's happening in the city of Tshwane. We are holding the DA accountable because they are the ones who are leading this coalition government. But we are not prepared to cover for them. Why they gave a contract to Edwin Sodi for the refurbishment of the Rooiwal water treatment plant? Are you aware that DA gave a tender to Edwin Sodi, Blackhead Consulting? Firstly, this company was not on the City of Tshwane's supply database. That's before our government. They were 40 million rands more expensive. They had no knowledge whatsoever of fixing the water treatment plants. But DA gave them the tender. And now we're in government with them. We want answers. We want to know. We're the ones who went up to the SIU. They are still obviously protected by the criminal, this corrupt criminal justice system. But I can tell you, for us as Action SA, we are not going to rest. We are not going to apologize to anyone. We want answers as to why Edwin Sodi was given this contract. And if you go into a coalition with us, just really know that we are going to hold you accountable. And if we mess up, please hold us accountable on the same standards.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Sorry, we have the next question at the back.
Salam and good evening to all. Mr. Herman, what's your party's view on the LGBTQ issue? Mr. Mashaba?
Well, I think if I believe in individual human rights, culture. If people believe that's how God really created them, I don't really believe I need to really be against them. As long as they don't really worry me, I'm a straightforward person. If you don't interfere with me, I don't see I have the right to really interfere with you, as long as you don't really interfere with me.
But surely it's against all religions, talking from a religious point of view, trying to bring religion back into government. Isn't that important as well? Especially for our young children that are growing up.
I think, to be honest with you, I'm not obviously quite knowledgeable to that extent with the religious leaders all over the different religions. And we've interrogated this with different religious interpretation. People interpret this differently. There are other religions that are strict on this. Others are quite relaxed. So as politicians, we need to ensure that we find a balance. We cannot obviously really use one religious belief over the others, because others would really be tolerant on issues like this. Others are not going to accept it. So my personal belief is actually give people the individual rights, because if I don't do this, then we'll create chaos in the world.
Thank you, Herman. Thank you, Herman. We have another question there.
Thanks, Mr. Mashaba. Shah Butha. A question just with regards to education policy. I think we're all in agreement with the impact and the role that education plays as a tool or lever in addressing many of the challenges that we currently face and that were highlighted during your discussion. What I am curious to sort of understand is just with regards to your view around some of your initiatives and the lag or time that would be required for that, and if any potential alternatives were considered as kind of preliminary or intermediary methods, such as voucher programs with regards to schools to sort of speed up that public-private initiative, and just to maybe gauge your view around that and were there considerations and what the conclusion was around that. Thank you.
You know, my view when it comes to education, firstly, South Africa does not really need to have two departments of education. We must have one department of education. And education, we must have one department of education. We must bring back school inspectors. Schools principals cannot really be appointed by unions. Unions will never have a veto right on our policies. We, as government, a Department of Education, one single department is going to have the responsibility, working with the communities, to decide who's the best person to be the principal. Because as much as government has got as far as say, but we need to work with the community. We cannot really bring in this system today where someone comes from East London to go and be a principal in a school in Thohoyandou, or come and be a school principal in Lodium, someone coming from outside. I think it's important when you have a school principal, the community, it must be someone founded in that community, because the person would really understand the dynamics of that community. But to make sure that there are checks and balances, we need to have school inspectors. We need to get all these retired teachers to come back into the system, go to schools unannounced. Right now, COSATU does not allow school principals. I don't understand what they're hiding. What we are saying as Section SA, school principals are going to be brought back. They will go to a school unannounced, and they'll have the right to go to any class of their choice to go and sit in there to make sure that the kids are being taught and being taught the right kind of way. And more importantly, we must bring God back into our schools. It's in our policy document. What we're saying is every morning before you go to, the kids go to school, they start classes, have 10 minutes or so to reflect, to really get God's blessing. We grew up in that environment. When I started school in 1966, up to I finished my matric in 1978, every morning before we go into class, we go to assembly. And we have some kind of reflection in a religion of your choice. And those who don't want to have those reflections, they don't believe in God, they can go to class, we'll find them there. They're what, 1 or 2%. I don't care about them. And I'm not going to force them to, I don't really believe we need to force atheists to come and pray. If they don't want to pray, it is up to them. And I think we need education that's not only going to focus at university level. Every child in this country must go through early childhood development centers. Not places where you leave your child because when you go to school, because you go to work. It must be a place of learning where we start practicing education. And I think for any nation to succeed, and I'm sure, fortunate enough, I'm talking to people, I'm talking to the converted. You know what family structure actually means? And that's the reason why this current government has destroyed our families. As long as we allow this devil to be in our midst, we destroy families. There's just no way that the kids can ever really be inspired to really go to school. So family plays a very important role because that's really where education starts. We cannot allow a situation where, 10-year-old children are having children. It's, and they don't know who their father is. So I think education is such a broad environment. It's not just the curriculum that plays a role in producing good society. There's so many fundamental issues. You cannot allow children to have children. By the constitution of this country, any child under 16 to really be pregnant, it's statutory rape. You know how many children in the townships, children having children, they don't know who their fathers are. Then we expect these kids to perform well in school. So school is not just the curriculum. It's really all facets of society. That's why we need to invest in social workers to really play the role. We need to invest in boarding schools where the damage caused over the last 29 years of this devil. We can take these kids out of these communities, put them in boarding schools. That's why this opportunity fund must work towards making sure that we can take kids with potential, put them in boarding schools, not only give them direct education, give them the moral, the support, so that they can really grow up to know that we care about them as society. That's why as Section SA, it's in our document, we want the kids that when you complete matric, there must be voluntary 1 year of service, where you can go to the army or the police, whatever. So while you're still really making up your mind. We must invest in technical colleges. South Africa at the moment, how desperate we are for bricklayers, for electricians, plumbers. We're using people who we don't know where they were trained as plumbers, electricians. You can imagine during apartheid days, in every township there will be a professional electrician. Today, go to most of the townships. Who are the electricians? Are people with qualifications. We don't know where they got them from. That's why our electricity grid is collapsing. So education for me is not just really the curriculum. It is it's so many factors that I've really tried to really cover in 1 minute. But I think you've got our brochure. But if you want to really go into more, you can go into our website. Because even in this document, we just really give you the highlights. But with our policies, actually, if you're really interested in really digging deep into our policies, you can go into our website.
Thank you, Herman. I'm looking for other questions. Okay, yes. We'd like you to keep coming with the questions. Please remember that those on online streaming, you can pose your questions through text. Ahmed, do we have any, how's our questions on the online streaming? We'll take some, but you can just monitor. So just a reminder to those viewing online. Okay, the gentleman at the back.
Thanks. Just clarification. When you say you want God in our schools, what are you talking about? Which God do you want to have in these schools? The Constitution is very clear that this is a secular country. Those who want religious schools will have their religious schools. But by and large, public schools are public schools, and we respect the diversity of people without wanting to come and then put a particular version of religion in front of them. And there's specific reasons why education in this country has not elevated or put religion as the forefront of that, simply because religion in this country can be extremely divisive. There is no one single agreed to notion of what religion is. And once you start going down this route, you stand to move in the direction that India is going today. The BJP are doing exactly what you are proposing. They have, under the guise of religion, enforcing a version of Hinduism across the country. And they say that's because they're promoting religion. So what you are proposing is extremely dangerous and needs to be well thought out. So those who want religious schools, this country allows for it. If there's one thing that South Africa is strong on, is its respect for religious diversity. All of its other weaknesses, I agree with you. But I think your direction in terms of wanting to turn our schools into basis for religion is not looking at the potential danger that's likely to come. We do not want to see a Christian national education coming about. We've come from that system. Christian national education is what all of us went through. Those are over 60 years. It distorted our minds. It warped our minds. And I'm not sure that that is the right thing to do. If you'll allow me, my second question.
Can we just keep one question?
Just one, I have to go.
Okay.
Why is Action SA supporting illegal strikers in Tshwane today? Why is it calling for them to be reinstated? When it's an illegal strike, those workers are destroying this city, and you now want them to be reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not really sure if you and I were in the same meeting or we're in the same hall or listening to one another, because what I'm hearing you say and what I've said, totally different. So, I mean, I answered that question earlier on, and I've really tried my best to really explain to you, because I've never seen any country in the world that follows one religion unless you force it on others. And I've spoke about religious independence. I'm not really sure, I'm sure whatever I'm saying is recorded, you can check that up if I ever promoted one religious affiliation. So you totally misunderstood me. So I think with due respect, I've said, and I'm saying this to you, there's only one God, as far as I'm concerned. Whether I pray with to that God through Christianity, through Islam, through Hinduism, through Judaism, and whatever, all of us, we pray to one God. If maybe your interpretation of having another God, I'm not aware about. I only know one God through the different religions, and that's the God that I'm talking about. And I'm not really prepared, as Herman Mashaba, to live in a country where people are telling me South Africa is a secular state, and therefore I cannot pray before I go to class, when 98% of South Africans believe in God in one form or another. And that's what this current government has done over the last 29 years. And talking about Action SA supporting illegal strike in the city of Tshwane, let me tell you something that you might not really be aware of. DA has been running the city of Tshwane since 2016, 5 years later. If there's any financial difficulty, the city of Tshwane was not really created by those employees. In 2016, just before the elections, the city of Tshwane signed a 3-year wage deal for the employees. Are you aware about that? 3-year wage deal. And then obviously then you decide you are not obviously paying them and you're not prepared to engage them. So what we are saying as Action SA, as the party that believes in the rule of law and respect human rights and respect the unions, as much as they might not really have the final say, but they have the right to engage them, more especially when you've signed an agreement with them. You take the matter to SALGA, SALGA sends it back to you, says, no, you've got a legal agreement, go and honor it. And then you appeal. And Action SA says to you, don't play this type of games, because the type of games that you are playing are very dangerous. You can take this to the labor court. It might take 2 to 3 years. In the meantime, the residents of Tshwane are suffering. You're the one who signed the agreement with them. In the meantime, people are suffering. Now what happens 3, 4 years down the line? You go to the labor court. The labor court says to you, I'm afraid you're the one who signed this contract. There's contingent liability. Now you've got 5 billion rands worth of debt that you must pay overnight because you used your arrogance at the time not to really negotiate. And for us as Action SA, we are not saying go and pay whatever, but engage them. And you go to a level of calling people criminals. When you're on the city of Tshwane, it's on the wrong side. And for them to refuse, for the mayor to refuse to negotiate and call them criminals, when the courts are saying, no, they are not. They have you signed an agreement, and you want to then come out with arrogant propaganda to mislead society that Action SA put you under the bus. We did not put you under the bus. We are saying respect those people, engage them, come to some sort of arrangement. But the game you are playing, it's very dangerous. The arrogance that you can do as you please, like the National Party did, that is not going to work under the current constitutional democracy.
Thank you, Herman. Do we have any other questions? Do we have any? Are we okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's time for me to eat as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a God-believing person and I've got so much respect. God gives me fresh air and whatever, but unfortunately, God says, you know what? You can't survive on the fresh air that I provide you. You also need hard food to eat to sustain you. So I'm sure you'll give me that opportunity so that I can feed my body as designed by God. It's not, so I don't want to really work against God.
I told you that it wasn't...
God expects me to eat for me to really be able to operate. Without eating, I can't operate.
I didn't tell you it was going to be easy coming here. So I'm going to close off one concluding question from myself. Why should I stay and invest in South Africa when I've been granted a visa to emigrate to a first world country?
Well, Rasheed, this is, I mean, it's a personal choice people must make. I can reasonably afford to go and live anywhere in the world, but I've taken a decision that I'm going to use my privileged position to save my country. Because show me any country in the world where there are no challenges. So let me rather deal with the challenges of my country than running away. But for those who decide to run away, honestly, it's a personal choice. Some people run away because they feel helpless, but I can tell you, go anywhere in the world and go into a country where you're not going to have challenges. Challenges are everywhere. The challenges have been there for the last 2,000 years, and challenges are here. And challenges in another 2,500 years are going to be there. But one thing, as a human species, we're just fortunate enough that God has given us this little brain to use to navigate the challenges. So if you decide to go and navigate the challenges in Australia or London, that is your personal choice.
Thank you. That's a very good answer. To conclude this evening's very vibrant crowd, the first objective of getting everybody together and stimulating the interest in active citizenry, I believe, has been partly achieved. Our second step should be to look now as to the next step that we should take to not just reduce this event to a mere talk shop like many others. So I'm suggesting that we look at forming a structured organization to be able to of like-minded people who can dedicate time to effect the changes that are needed. And I'll be guided by comments from everyone watching and having come to this event. But Herman, I'm going to relieve you. You can engage into your dinner. And thank you for honoring us here with your presence and sharing your ideals with us. I think it was truly inspirational. Thank you. Thank you so much.